Welcome back to Anime Savants, everyone. This week I am Cure Finale.
Oh yeah, you were in on that this week. I am Hack from Yurei Deco, which we'll talk about.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, like, we didn't do a preview because, just, the 100th episode is over 2 hours. Like, yeah, it was a lot. But we are watching, like, a lot of the new series, especially compared to what we did last season, where we did, 3?
Yep.
And then that was, like, it. Like, we're watching way more stuff, and it's, like, varied between, but we haven't decided on, what the 3 things or the 2 things are going to be, or even if we're going to do it this time. Like, we might just, like, do other topics, but we'll see. Anyways, so Yurei Deco, I mean, you can start with that one. I saw the first episode drop and I was like, that looks interesting, but I don't know if I'm gonna like watch it off the bat. And then I had several people recommend, they were like, yo, it gives me someone said it's summertime rendering. Someone said it gives that kind of vibe. Not summertime rendering, Summer Wars.
Oh, well, yeah, definitely Summer Wars. So the concept, I like, me, I'm a sucker for like high concept stuff that's boiled down into a visually fun, punchy kind of show. So the concept is loosely based on the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which you would never imagine that's the, the whole, well, at least as far as what we've seen, the story takes place on a place called like Tom Sawyer Island or City. It's like, there's a lot of literary references all in there, but essentially there's this very strange, colorful dystopia that the main character, whose name is Barry, lives in, where essentially people, they're if you actually look at like the lives they live, they're in these very like stripped down homes, not a lot of like accoutrement and everything else, but when you see the visuals, you see all this like bright colors and like electronic things. No, it's everyone has had something implanted in their eyes that allows them to have like a virtual reality overlay on top of the real world, or augmented reality, and they've commoditized likes, or what they call loves, from social media. So everyone, and it's also the currency. So everyone's life is very like sanded
influencer
down, and everyone is like trying to accrue love points for everything they do. And when you meet everyone, it's this very happy, idyllic, cartoonish sort of world that they live in. And there's this phantom thief who is a character that we don't meet in the very beginning, who is sort of like a legend in this city or on this island, where it is able to cause love points to disappear. It's stealing love points. And the main character is a plucky girl, she's fresh and bright-eyed about the world, and something goes wrong with one of the decos, which is what they call the eye augmented reality thing, in one of her eyes that allows her to see this invisible person who was the phantom thief. And so through her wanting to chase him and thinking that's a game, she gets introduced to all of maybe the dark side of the world that they live in, where the reason why everything is so idyllic is because there's people scrubbing all the bad content out of the world. Like, like on Twitter, it's like an allegory for social media, where there are content monitors who, if someone say takes a picture of someone getting hurt, they just remove it so that nobody sees it. And they're very, aggressive about maintaining the order in the city by keeping everybody happy. So there's that concept. It's a high concept thing. It's bringing in a lot of ideas and elements from classic literature, character names, themes, places, the structure of the story. So like if her name is Barry, the person who she thinks is the phantom thief's name is Hack. Sort of like Huckleberry, Hackberry, they're doing a lot there's a lot of verbal allegory as well as to like the way people talk about stuff, and some genuinely like cute and uplifting but also chilling scenes kind of back to back. So I really enjoyed that juxtaposition of like bright, colorful, cartoony stretch. There's a situation where they're in the cyberspace world and they have to escape an enemy, and he creates a hole in the ground, and when she falls through it, they do the Looney Tunes like whoop, like falling down the hole noise. So there's a lot of like slapstick comedy, but it's the more I pay attention to
slapstick to me, I didn't think it was going to be like a very serious-esque thing because of the vibrancy of the colors and the designs.
Yeah, but the fun part about it is that the pieces that are the most cartoonish, where, for example, you'll get shots where characters in the first episode, a kid is playing with what's sort of like a facsimile of a Super Mario World 1 on a wall, where you have all these like augmented reality things, and there's like a character jumping, and you see all the stuff, and it's in 2D because it's being projected on the wall. And then later on in the second episode, when they're in cyberspace and they're running from an enemy, there's a sequence which is they flip the camera so it's like locked into a 2D perspective, even though it's 3D with, hand-drawn animation on top. And it looks like they're playing a game where they're jumping and dodging and doing all kinds of other stuff on that 2D plane. And that's just a visual effect. But like the cartoonishness of that is subtly, it only occurs with the virtual reality or augmented reality components of the world they're in. So you don't get a lot of that squash and stretch or like absurd physical things happening when they're in the real world and dealing with the real world characters that are there. So like they're still drawn, they're like anime characters, but you're not going to get like Looney Tunes moments in the real world, because that's important to keep some of the dread and the juxtaposition, because you're like, once you realize that that's what's happening in the story and that there's a facade and then there's what's really happening, you actually start to worry about your characters a lot more, because it feels like it's not a cartoon. The cartoon is all the augmented VR stuff, and then the real world is like, oh shit, bad things could just happen to somebody in this world. And yet you see the character designs and how it's drawn, so it still does have like a very surreal, Tex Avery cartoon kind of feel, even though there's something underneath that's a lot more solid, which is what I felt about what I saw the first 2 episodes, is that there's something underneath all of this conceptually, visually, execution-wise, music, everything that's more solid than you would think just experiencing it and trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So I liked it. I would just recommend anyone who wants to watch it, pay attention to there's a lesson scene from a teacher in the first 3 minutes of the first episode. That should give you an idea of the depth that they're trying to go for, because it lays out very clearly what all the stakes are, but it's done so in such a way that you could easily write it off as just like, oh, this person's talking down to children. They start talking about like, oh, we exist for, to what was the phrase a guy used? He said like, the purpose of our world is to deliver the best service, under a neoliberal blah 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 kind of. I'm like, man, you're hitting us with some real politics shit. Like they're going for it. So there's more to the show, and I really enjoyed it.
It also kind of, would you say it's similar to Kyoso Giga in a sense?
Oh yeah, yes, I would say that. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like I'm thinking on it, and I'm just like, there's another show that's coming to my mind where like it like similar, like the way that you described like the action and like how like things are very colorful, but then all of a sudden it's like a quick shift to this. It's like something. It was Kyosugiga. I'm not exactly, but I can see like some of those tropes being like similar. And
if you're if you're thinking about what you say, there's like a dark undertone to it. What do you mean? So I don't think he wrote the story, but it's based on an original story by the guy who was behind Devilman Crybaby.
Oh,
and the screenwriter is the same guy who did Cowboy Bebop, Eureka 7. What else? I'm missing something, but like there's some real good writers and producers that are behind it. Right, Ergo Proxy. Yeah, Dai Sato. Yeah, he did Ergo Proxy. So if you know Ergo Proxy, it's almost like the inversion of Ergo Proxy. Which was very dark and very like moody, whereas this is very bright and very colorful and allegoric and all this other stuff. So like I just was blown away by the level of depth that they were able to get, and I didn't really know anything about it. I was like everybody else, like, oh, this looks weird, but yeah, it's good. So that's my at the first 2 episodes. I will be watching this weekly unless the story really disappoints, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels tight, so I'm in.
Cool. Did you watch you didn't watch Engage Kiss, did you?
I didn't. Should I?
The nigga's a bum. Like he's a bum. Like I'm just like I gotta put that out there. He's a bum.
Like a fun bum? Like
no, he's a bum.
Oh,
like he's a
okay.
bum. Like
Okay,
the women in the show are taking care of him, and he has no problem taking a high schooler's paycheck. Like he's a bum. But when they get into it further, you're like, she's not actually a high schooler. She's like a high grade demon that like is living with him or whatever.
Fine with me.
I will give them the action is top tier.
For real? Okay, I can get behind that. I can absolutely get behind that.
Yeah, no, they were. I mean, they had the the kissing scenes with the slobber, and I was like, of course, the show's name Engaged Kiss.
Yeah, sure.
I knew this shit was coming, but the action scenes, I was like, yo, this is good. Like I'm enjoying this shit. But yeah, he's a bum. He's just a bum. Like he went the girl that has a crush on him fed him because he didn't have like a solid meal for 3 weeks.
What the fuck?
And then the other girl came to his apartment and he didn't have energy, no lights, no gas. So she couldn't actually cook a meal for him. So she just diced up lettuce for that nigga. And he was like, oh, I just actually ate a real meal. I don't need this. And
you dumb.
Yeah. I was like, yo, this nigga's a bum.
I put that man in a box for some shit like that.
Like he's, whatchamacallit, I would say he would be like a hobosexual, like the guys that just like sleep with people just so they can have a place to like mooch off of. Like I feel like he would be one if he didn't have ambitions in life. But he actually does have some kind of ambition, and it slightly shows. But overall, the action definitely carried the show. It was very much so interesting. It wasn't super like lolly nude, like, oh, we about to show you her panties and all this kind of shit like that. It wasn't anything like that.
So the fan service was limited to something.
Oh yeah, the fan service was very limited. Like I really wasn't even. I don't even really remember anything fan service-y to make me say, beware, don't watch this in public, or this scene, etc., etc. I haven't watched the second episode yet, so maybe that changed. I don't know. But as far as the first episode goes, the action that action sequence at the end, it was like a good 7 or so minutes of just like nonstop, just like shit happening. So I'll give it to them. They came with a bang for the first episode. It was interesting. I wouldn't say the world building is all that great because we didn't get much world building. But it also, what kind of show is this? It's like a basically they're demons. And demon extermination agencies bid with I guess the city government or whatever to take out the demon. And so he basically, the girl who likes him with the blue hair, he used to work for her mom's agency, and he cut off. Apparently there's something happening with his dad because someone said some sideways shit about his dad, and he so it's just okay, nigga, whatever. But he's been by himself. That's why he's broke, because he hasn't been taking any of the jobs, because he's only looking for specific jobs for some reason. But he can't do the job without the girl that wants to kiss and shit like that, because whatever, she needs his power through kissing. I think she's sucking his blood, so she's a vampire-esque demon, whatever. Anyways, she was fucking washing. So
this is Strike the Blood, but episodic.
Yeah, that's a very good. Yeah, it's very similar to Strike the Blood.
Detective stuff. Okay.
Yeah, it's detective-esque stuff, and I don't think they know where the demons are coming from, etc., etc. Gotcha. But there was a fight scene where they were fighting the demon, and then there was a fight scene where the two love rivals were fighting each other while killing the demons. And I was like, this is great. And then they sprinkled a little bit of comedy in there that wasn't perverted. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can see myself maybe not keeping up with it weekly, but I can see myself coming back just to see if they're going to keep up the same action level, or if that was
I can get down with that, because there was there's a couple series that are escaping my memory that in the last couple of years that I kind of have the same relationship with, where it's there's a concept here, this is never going to get to a A or S tier type show, but the rhythm of a little bit of Monster of the Week stuff, some decently produced, whether it's action or dialogue or mystery, something, there's some hook and they do a decent job with it. I like it. I'm with this.
So yeah, I mean, it's for some people, it's not for some others. But he's a bum. Like, y'all, I'm telling you, like the dialogue from like the first half of the episode, I just was just shook. I just didn't. I was okay. Yeah, he's a bum, but interesting show. Did you watched My Isekai Life, the long ass name one?
Yeah. So there's
the slimes.
There are several slime shows, or at least 2 this season.
Oh, there's another one?
There is, which is what I wanted to talk about together. So we might as well just like dive into it because there are 5 isekais or 4 isekais of any real significance this season. We can start there, but the 4 would be like, because Overlord is an isekai, so we got Overlord back. We have my isekai life, second isekai life, or my isekai life with a second class, or something like that.
Yeah.
Then there's Black Summoner, and then there's Harem Labyrinth, or whatever the fuck. Okay?
Oh, yeah, that's an isekai. I forgot all about that.
Yes, it is 100% isekai. So there's 4 of them. And 2 of them involve slime trainers, which I think can't be a coincidence. But I'm gonna leave it there. So if we want to start with my isekai life, that one dropped early, right? It was sort of was ahead of a lot of
2 episodes.
Yeah, so I watched the first 2 back to back, and then I watched the 3rd this week. So we're a little further ahead. I don't dislike it at all. I think that there's some interesting ideas here. The way they've decided to tell the story is kind of like forward and backwards. So every episode, well, not 3, but the first 2 episodes, we actually start a week after whatever the penultimate event of him coming to the world. So they kind of do something which I suggest a lot of shows that, I'm going to say this nicely, they don't have very dynamic main characters or a supporting cast that's 2-dimensional. They just start with the best part of whatever the idea you've got is to get people to stay involved. Yeah. So in the first episode, you're kind of meeting the character after he's kind of figured out himself and his powers. And so the whole episode is essentially just one long flex where we realize that we've got the OP main character and he's just running the house on everybody. And you get some really cool scenes with the way he combines magic and his little squad of creatures that are supporting him, which are, you're watching this like, I watched episode 1, I'm like, did I miss something? Did we like skip a whole season? Like, nope, this is how
I actually watched the episodes in the wrong order.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
It would feel better actually if you had watched them in the other order.
I watched the second episode first. And I was like, this is a very tame start. Like, I'm very surprised. Like, wow. Yes. I was still interested in it, but I was just like, this is very, like, tame. I can see where we're going with it. And they also gave backstory in the second episode also.
Yeah, I thought the second episode was a flashback.
Yeah. So I was like, they're kind of, I'm used to, like, it's an isekai. Boom. You get a moment. Yeah. But then when I realized, I was like, wait a second, no, that's the first episode. And I watched the first episode and I was like, now this is what I was expecting.
So
that was good.
I'm going to try to suss out
I seen the third one though.
That's cool. Yeah, this won't change too much. I'm going to try to suss out what I think the show wants to be about versus kind of what it seems to be right now. So the general hook of the main character, he doesn't give you very much. He's not a particularly dynamic person. His personality is incredibly subdued and reserved, very cautious, but in a distrustful, neat sort of way. It's just nothing is over the top. Like, you could go back to the ReZeros of the world or some other series that are more generic than that, where the main character is very much embodying some stereotype, whether it is a very forward and brash one or one that is very reserved. This character is just sort of like, and I don't even remember his name, to be honest. Like, I feel like I've watched the same show 3 times this season, so nothing of that part sticks out. However, there are some concepts that they're trying to play with that I don't hate. So the first is that when we learn, I believe in the second episode, his backstory, or at least bits and pieces of it, it appears that he was a programmer in his life on Earth, and he was, and as an engineer myself, that mentality he was trying to talk through was one where you're a loner, but you're a loner because you're very good at your job. And so in the world he came from, being extremely good at something meant that he got way more work than everyone else in an unfair way. And then his attitude of like not trusting other people and, you know, being very confident in his own abilities, but understanding that it's going to screw him, leads and kind of connects to his reborn character in the isekai world, where he's cautious about making friends or really relying on other people. Except he's got this like squad of summons who kind of do what he wants,
Yeah.
but they do what he wants. He works through them. They're not necessarily doing anything independently. So my guess is that the story the show wants to tell is about how that mentality of doing everything yourself, even though you could be super powerful, because he's as powerful a summoner magician in this other world as he is a programmer in his real world.
Yeah.
That mentality ultimately is wrong, and he will learn through whatever the events of the story are that he needs to rely on people, and that there's equivalent exchange, and that he, you know, doesn't have to control everything himself, but he's also not an asshole. So that's kind of the gift and the curse of the way I think the story and the character set up, because he's not a jerk. You know, Subaru is a dick, and he's selfish, and he's got all these like major character flaws, and so a big part of the drama is him being forced to recognize one flaw after another through horrific circumstances. I don't think that's what this show is set up to do. And so I'm curious as to just how deep they're going to be able to mine what they want out of, you know, a pretty shallow character.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more to it. Maybe we're gonna learn to. But so there's that. So I'll leave it there. What do you think about what you saw in the first 2 episodes?
I need a threat. Not so much as though I don't think a threat can come, but I think that him figuring out the magic system and him having limits as far as his MP, so he can do that like fuck shit, but it knocks him out. And so then the slimes, the wolf, and the dryad girl are like, you know, on them by themselves, which I haven't even gotten to the point where the dryad girl is introduced, or if she even is introduced in the 3rd episode. So I know that there's something going on with the cult, but the way that they show off the other characters in the opening makes it seem as though it's going to be more of like an ensemble storyline where he just comes in and saves the day and shit just happens around him. And if it's going to be like that, I'm perfectly okay with that, because they can keep his character blank, and then as the story goes on, or maybe he develops relationships with these people, then, like, you know, emotion comes into it, and, you know, he settles into the new world, or maybe something happens to one of the monsters or something like that. So you're right, there does need to be, not just you're right about that, but like I would say there needs to be some more emotion. And if there's not going to be any emotion, then I need a villain that is literally, I wouldn't say like so widespread as like a cult. I need like a particular thing going on, and how does that directly threaten him and his existence? Because it seems like he just wants to just exist and chill and adventure and like help people, or just be part of the guild. And I don't think it's going to be that simple. And also, I would like to see more of a reaction. But also, it's 3 episodes. So, like, if I'm like on episode like 7 and I'm like, this nigga is still a blank, then I'll be like, okay, come on. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and I think that shows like this, with this structure, are going to live and die by their supporting cast, which is basically, you know, I agree with what you sort of just laid out, is that if the main character is going to be a blank slate, then the supporting cast has got to be elevating all the emotional range that he's not going to have. And so far, I don't see it yet. I mean, the 2 girls that, or the adventurers who run into him, like, they don't have a lot that they themselves are bringing emotionally, or even from like a.
I don't think it's gonna be them. I think it's gonna be that like that priest that was like looking at the moon or something.
It might be
like,
and again, we're early days, and I'm not judging, you know, necessarily off of the intro either. But all I'm saying is I agree with you, especially about the villain, and we can talk about what I think is the biggest sin every season. It's not special to this season that we're dealing with now, but the complete lack of good villains across many stories.
Yeah.
I mean, not even just anime. Like, a good villain is critical, and all these series typically are lacking that. So we'll get around to it, but I basically I agree with your point of view. The last thing I'll say about what I've seen up to episode 3 is good. It makes me feel more interested to watch, because he is about to do something that
okay.
that my guess is that this is what's going to drive the story. The whole idea of like, oh, I got to handle it myself, but something that either could be beyond him or could have consequences for other people, even if he is successful. Good. So I see that part. I also appreciate that this series does experiment with visually communicating when they're in talking about the real or the world he came from versus that fantasy world, where they do that sort of paint over.
Yeah, I like how they do that. They changed the aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a couple of shows that we'll probably talk about a little bit afterwards that kind of do the same thing, not the visually the same thing, but the same concept, but they're budget shows. And it's just I'm very happy that directors and some of the people who are behind these now understand that you can not necessarily even up your production value, but take a few risks so that something is memorable rather than just being flat all the way through. So it's good. So of the 4 isekai, and I know you didn't watch all of them, I'm going to sort of put my second isekai life at a number, maybe I'm going to say number 2 at my general interest level.
Yeah.
And we could talk about number 1, because it probably should be easy. Overlord. I assume you watched the first episode.
I watched Overlord. I don't know. I always struggle with Overlord, because I always try to watch it as it comes out, and I lose interest, and then like right before the season ends, I come back and I binge it. And I think it's, at least for me, it's better consumed in chunks as opposed to one by one, because the only thing that I really want out of Overlord right now, because they can do all the storylines of taking over this country and all that kind of stuff like that, but it's already like super fucking obvious that no one's gonna beat him. Like, no one can beat him. Like, he's just too fucking powerful. So now what I want from Overlord is another isekai person coming in threatening him. Like, I need someone else from the game. Not someone from his guild, but just another person that just maybe just so happened to be like a rival guild in the game, or the dying game before it got shut down or whatever, and coming in and doing that. Like, I need another, like an actual threat. Not just my subordinates are in trouble. That doesn't really do anything for me right now. But it was still interesting.
So I'm on the other end of it, but I think we are going to arrive at the same conclusion. So I don't need there to be necessarily a major threat to the main character power scaling wise. Mm-hmm. I think that what I need is more of an acknowledgement that the final threat are his mistakes.
Oh.
That's what I need from the series as a whole to sort of tie the bow on the story that's being told. Because if that is ultimately, if they get there, that sort of his bumbling around and his constant indecision and lying and all sorts of other things in order to sort of preserve the fantasy that maybe he's going to meet his friends again, which was, they tease that like that was where the direction of the plot, he's doing all this stuff so that he can meet his friend. I think I can't support that story with what
I don't even
has
think
happened.
That's like viable, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that story functions at all in any meaningful way. So the only thing left that from like a big, bring it all together in one big penultimate point is him realizing all the stuff that has happened underneath his vision because he is so out of his depth and was confident and comfortable either lying or embodying our role-playing his own character.
Yeah.
Do I think that Overlord can get there? I mean, I'm not a light novel reader, so I cannot tell you if this is the way it goes. I'm sure it probably doesn't.
I mean, it's season 4, so it's doing something right.
Is there something wrong with the fans? And by the way, I think this is my favorite of the isekai, but not because it's necessarily like doing amazing things. I just think that there's a lot of plot threads that were interesting that are still spooling out of this. So I'm still interested. But what I'm going to say is not dogging the show. I just think it's one of those cases like Attack on Titan where its momentum and its popularity has driven whatever the storytelling rather than the other way around, because it almost felt like in season, by the time in season, I don't know what light novels they were adapting in 3 I don't know, but my guess is that it's about the spectacle of like, Ainzul come out, do something crazy. It's almost like, Rick from Rick and Morty.
Have the gall to challenge.
Right. And that's fun because it's a great power fantasy. It is absolutely great of him just like crushing people under his boot. But like a little introspection. I mean, according to some folks who read, and I don't, the whole like human farm thing that they talk about in the previous season, they just allude to it because Demiurge is just doing it of his own volition. It's some sick shit, like some real fucking sick shit.
Oh,
and it comes up somehow in the story. I don't know how, but it does. I would like to see them go, or at least lead us.
Now that would be, that would also go along with what you're saying, that his mistakes.
Yeah.
Becoming the problems.
Yeah. So I think that visually it looks fantastic. There's plenty. The money is well spent there.
I mean, the opening song sounds amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly. The soundtrack and the music is great. Opening song is great. Animation's great. It's very in the scenes where it needs to be. It's very like indulgent, which is what it should be. It should.
Yeah.
It has to deliver something. Like I'm just telling you, it's nailing the power fantasy for me. And it's nailing the cast of characters, it's nailing even some of the comedy. But if I want to talk about this like it's a great series, it's got to do something else with the plot in order for it to like be arriving at a point that I can get behind. And right now, I have no idea what that is. Like I'm not all that interested in exploring the world. And if we're going to waste a season on a bunch of adventurers doing adventuring things, it's like, it seems like we're meandering around to waste time rather than to get us to a emotional moment or a plot point.
Which, I mean, the adventuring thing, it did perk me up because I was interested in thinking, oh, well, what if they discover things that even you don't know? So that
I don't hate it. It's more like what you brought up before about how you were interested in finding out if his colleagues had actually survived, i.e. there's a mystery box in the rest of the world. And so mystery boxes are very good for storytelling, but then when you have to open that box, and once you open the box, it's what's inside of it that either makes people super excited or more often than not kills a lot of interest, because once you start, explaining what's happening, it's like, oh, that's what it was?
Yeah.
You telling me it was made out of spiders? All right, well there you go. You know what I mean? So that's I like it, but I don't want a meandering season. I want them to start moving.
Yeah. What was the other one? Black Summoner?
Okay, so we have Black Summoner and Harem Labyrinth.
And Harem. Oh,
so boy. Black Summoner is the other slime isekai, and it's such I wanted to like really dog on it when I started watching it because I just couldn't figure out like why does this exist. The first 5 minutes are like as generic as you probably can get in an anime. So the setup is the main character's name is Kelvin. He wakes up in a fantasy world, but when he wakes up he discovers that his whatever the self that he had that came to the world was able to negotiate or bargain with the goddess, and so in exchange for all of his memories, he gets like OP powers to some degree.
So he doesn't his memories.
So he has so he knows that he lived in the human world, but he doesn't have any significant memories from that world.
Okay.
And of course he's given some 1 or 2 crazy ass skills, which is why this is a more or less a power fantasy. But other than that, it leans more into the comedy, and it leans a little bit more into the more vanilla, gamified isekai than some of the other ones that we've talked about, right?
Oh, like skill points or some shit like that?
So there's skill points, and there's a window, and there's like whatever, and there's some production
Okay.
and they put some production into it, so it's not like it looks pleasant enough. The animation is passable. There's a couple of scenes that I think are well animated as far as like action and body movement and whatever. Not a lot of like crazy special effects, but the magic and power system could be interesting, except for the fact that like the main character's definitely a cheat code, so there's not going to be that shield hero the season 1 shield hero where there's like a major struggle. I mean, there is struggling and they have to learn, but I will say that the comedy that's there is a little more like it's character driven, so it's grounded. So that's a good thing.
Well, I wasn't expecting it to be comedic like that. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not like super comedic, but like you'll see, like it's the same way in My Isekai Life. Like all the slimes have little cute faces. And
yeah.
So this slime also has a little cute face, and the goddess is like basically she I guess he flattered her a lot in the negotiation, which we never see, but he got her to sign a contract with him so that she could, but the reason why she signed it was that she could go on vacation in that world.
Oh,
because that's the only way she can manifest.
God,
because he's a summoner, so she wants him to get enough MP, which would allow him to be able to summon her so she can have a vacation. So there's stuff like that.
So eerily similar to Konosuba, but just like. Okay. Well,
it's nowhere near as goofy, and it's nowhere near as driven by the jokes.
Yeah.
But that aspect is there. Now I'm going to talk about something that bothers me, and it's something that bothers me across a few of the series that we've already talked about. There's the back end of the first episode introduces us to the fact that there is slavery in this world. Mm-hmm. And this is similar to the other series I will talk about. Oh, okay. But I am very sick of that trope. And it's not like I hate the idea of that existing in stories. It's just that don't ask me to be laughing on one end and then showing people in human bondage in the next scene. Like there's a kind of flippancy that especially light novel writers treat that subject because Japan doesn't necessarily have a deep cultural connection to it. So for them, a lot of it is setting, right? Oh, this is a setting, so like whatever. But they want to mine that activity either for its immorality in some cases, like when you need like a cheap villain, it's like, oh, they're a slaver, so they're bad. And it's like, yeah, but you adding this to this world is meaningful, and you're not treating it like that. Right? So that's like one end that's not great. The other side of it is when it's about wish fulfillment. And I will get to that in Harem Labyrinth, where slavery is itself a device to either excuse or to play out some kind of other fantasy, which I find to be pretty gross. So at the end of this episode, we're just introduced to the fact that there's slavery, and the main character kind of just like walks right by. And to me, I can't really root for a character that doesn't share, like, as a projection of myself. I can't insert into this story because this is gross and disgusting to me. However, I don't necessarily think that's a reason not to watch it. I'm just saying this is my personal feeling about seeing that and the way it's deployed in the story bothering me. When it didn't have to, either it didn't need to be there or they could have been handled differently. So, all in all, put this one, on the lower end, but there's something to recommend it, and it's not terrible. But I've only seen one episode, so I don't know what they intend to do.
If they come back around to it in the second one, how is Harem?
Harem Labyrinth inspired a tweet, but it inspired it too early.
Wait, what do you mean too early?
It was too early because I'd only watched like the first couple of minutes of it. I was like, oh my god, this is what we're getting. So, plot of Harem Labyrinth. Guy wakes up in another world. Okay, we're isekai'd. He thinks it's a VR game, so he treats it like a VR game. So he gets out there. The first thing he does is steal somebody's shoes because he ain't got no shoes. he's like he had a magic sword that was really powerful that he thought he was playing a game. He was like, oh, I'm gonna just get the hero package, like, so he gets like probably one of the most powerful swords in the world, and then he immediately, there's a bandit attack on the village, and he thinks like, oh, well, this is a game where bandits attack, so I guess I'm supposed to, like, take out that high-level bandit because, it's a game. Why would they put me in a starting area like that? So, obviously, he doesn't realize that he's overpowered, and he fucking chops this motherfucker's head off gruesomely. Ooh. Like, the sword goes to this dude like butter. And he's just like, and blood is everywhere. And he's like, oh, I guess that's the game. And he just starts completely dissecting humans. He puts a sword through some motherfucker's throat. He cuts a man in half, like full body in half, blood everywhere. Like, no question. He's cool with it. Some stuff happens. Boy. And he's like laying down. He's like, okay, that's fun. Great first quest. Time to log out. Oh, wait, I can't. I'm trapped in this world. Oh, shit. I just killed like 8 people like it was nothing. Oh, shit. He starts to, he wants to throw up, like, whatever. So, why did this inspire a tweet? Because when I first started looking at this, I'm like, I've seen this setup before. They're doing some interesting stuff with camera angles, but like, okay, here we go. It's just going to be a fight. What I criticize a lot of these shows for is, if you've got a premise, and I knew that Harem Labyrinth was supposed to be straight up like pornographic.
Yeah.
Like, I knew that going in. So I'm like, don't give me something vanilla, okay? Go all the way with some part of this production, and then the things that are weak and aren't going to work, like if the storytelling is weak, or the characters are kind of weak, or the world building is not going to be all the way there, at least like do more than the sex. And I didn't think they would, but the fight scenes are brutal.
What?
Absolutely.
Like Goblin Slayer brutal?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, you don't have the benefit of maybe mass slaughter yet, but like the scene where he's like chopping these motherfuckers up gleefully is crazy. Like, there's a lot. Even the main character's like, man, there's a whole lot of blood in this game. Like, he's just fountains of blood everywhere. He's like, I did that. And then so there's that aspect of it.
Okay.
So cool. Boom, boom, boom. Gets to the town. First thing that kind of gave me some inkling that there was a little more thought put into this is that the reason he attacked the bandit or whatever is he saw he had a really powerful item. He goes to then collect that item, and it turns out it's been swapped for one that it has no ability. And you kind of find out some villager took it. And so they hand the item back over, the guy's in chains, and he's like, what do you want to do with this guy? And the main character's like, well, look, I don't want to interact or overrule whatever your laws and customs are, so do whatever you're going to do. So then the village elder uses magic to turn that guy into a slave for life. And and the main character's like, wait, what? Like, that could happen? And the conversation that came out of that as they're doing some world building was at the very least well thought through and managed to introduce some basic concepts that I was like, okay, some thought was put into what they're doing.
Outside and the characters just like horny niggas.
Right, and also the characters are not the sort of supporting sort of one-dimensional people that he runs into in the world still have some character to them, even if they're there to do basically one thing. And then towards the end of the episode, you get, okay, this is the horny. So he goes and turns in all these bounties for these bandits he's murdered brutally. Still kind of can't get over that part. And they instead of taking him to a merchant, they take him to a slave trader who then first buys all the stuff. And he's like, oh, okay, whatever. And he's about to peace out. And then as he's leaving, the guy's like, hold on a minute. You don't really know anyone around here. You're an adventurer, right? His bro's like, all right. He's like, I got something else for you. So it brings him back in. But they make a point in the dialogue to point out that he brings him to a better looking room than the first one where they did the original basic transaction. Yeah. And they're like lingering on the walls and the paintings, and like the main character's like observing. And you get a lot of like what's going on in his head, but a lot of it is to do world building. And what the guy basically propositions him is like, hey, look, you look like an adventurer. You look like you don't know nobody. I know what adventurers do. Y'all go into dungeons. You'll go into labyrinths. One just opened up near town. wouldn't it be a lot easier for you if you had some help? And he was like, what do you mean by help? And they proposition with a slave. But then he's like, but bro, peep this. And the dude leads in close. They sex slaves too. And dude's mind has been in the gutter since they came into town. And so most of the sexualness in the episode takes place in his own head. I mean, there is a lot of fan service that once they break that wall open, you know, as far as like this is where the story is gonna go. Yeah. You got the maid with the huge swinging breasts that he can't stop looking at, and like in his mind he's imagining like a brothel and like women with like, you know, lingerie pulled all the way up their vaginas, and like you see lips.
Oh my god!
You see a lot of
now
stuff.
That's what I was expecting.
And that part is also well animated in the same way all the bloody carnage was well animated. And so I'm like, great, this is what I'm saying. Don't take things to a 7. Go to a 10 in the areas that are going to be like trashy and over the top. Just fucking do it, you know, go all the way. And it's, you know, did I get a little bit of world building in the process? Sure. Am I comfortable again with slavery being like the mechanism in order to like make the plot function? No, I don't like it at all. But at the same time, it is doing what I was admonishing of the series. Just dial that shit up to a 10 or an 11. If you're gonna give me some things that are like make me uncomfortable with the story, just override it with the other stuff, and we'll see how far we get on the merits of what's going on. So like, I wound up enjoying the first episode.
That actually sounds very interesting outside of just like the hentai. Like,
yeah, and that's maybe because there wasn't as much of it, and the way it's presented is that the main character has a character. He's not a complete blank slate, even though he came in looking exactly like Subaru, just in a black tracksuit instead of a blue one. Like literally could have been the same character for about like 5 minutes. I'm like, are they really just taking the high points of ReZero and adding a lot of sex? Is that what we're gonna do here?
Hey.
And which is not a terrible idea either.
I mean, that might work. Some people might want to be like, you know what? If you just remix this, I'd actually watch it. Hey.
Yeah, so I kind of put this at like number 3. So all in all, it would be like Overlord, then My Isekai Life, then Harem Labyrinth, and then Black Summoner. But I will say this. Of all 4 of them, none of them are actually bad. I was really expecting at least one to be crap out the gate, like utter shit. And it wasn't. Like, even the one that's supposed to be trash is at least doing what I asked. It's what I asked from trash. Just be as trashy as you can afford to be. And they are. So I'm not upset about it.
Yeah.
So those are isekais. Did you happen to watch Classroom of the Elite?
Oh, yes, sir. Episode 2 also. Yep.
What you think?
I'm loving it. I watched it when it first came out. My whole thing is that this show just keeps me engaged. Personally, engaged. Because every time that something goes on, I'm just like, ooh, bitch, remember that. Oh, this is about that. Oh, that's going to come back. Or what are you doing? Why you acting like that? Blah, blah, blah. But the one thing that I'm now, I don't know if they're like focusing on it more now, but that the look in Ayano Koji's eyes is just so devoid of just like any kind of feeling. And I'm not talking about like he himself is like severely depressed. It's just like the way that he looks at shit. It's like you're observing, but also what happened at the end of the second episode, I was just like, nigga, what? Like you're planning to use this. I know he's planning to use it in some form or fashion to either win or mitigate the damage to like Class D's points in turn to himself. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, you can't use people like that. And I feel like that might be one of the, because they already said that he's getting expelled. Like he said, like they hinted at that in the first episode of the second season. They were like, he eventually gets expelled or some shit like that. So it's like, I think that they're probably like, or I think that might be like an ongoing theme going forward where it's going to highlight like, yeah, these other niggas are crazy, but you're on like another level of just like non-attachment. Just, yeah, we can use this shit. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've been observing her. Yeah. And I thought that this arc was probably going to highlight him having to learn how to work with the other class members without using Homegirl as a puppet. And it kind of is, but then he also is still being Ayano Koji. So I don't really see him as like a hero, which I like.
He's not. Yeah, I've always from that last scene at the end of season 1. Yeah, where he was like very clear. He's like, I've never thought of you as a companion or a comrade. Yeah, like it was straight up, and I was with it 100%. I loved that we instantly transitioned to another game. That the rules still seem to be a little esoteric, but it's kind of like werewolf or whatever, like where and they've divided up all the classes, so we are meeting a lot of the characters that I didn't remember too much from like class A.
I didn't remember a lot either.
But what's the name of the red-haired dude, the one who's the leader of class C, who was like the main villain? Do you happen to remember that? I don't remember his name.
I know who you're talking about.
But I like him in this season, especially after what we learned about him last season. Because remember, he was basically the primary antagonist for the last arc, but he wasn't really in the last arc. Because literally everyone on his team quit, and then he went and hid in the woods until the thing was over, and you only really find out what he was doing in the last episode, or the last 2 episodes. But he's a great example of what we were chatting about before, about villains. Okay? You need interesting villains if your main character is going to be kind of a flat blank slate, right? Like I'm pretty sure you're as sick as I am of like the quiet, brilliant, genius main character who doesn't talk with any emotion and just like figure shit out. Like that, it's a fine archetype. It's just lame as shit. Like very lame. So you need guys who are over the top in your face or challenging or just have like a very strong character.
Which he is. So. And I also like how he basically is saying, girl, you're not smart enough to be doing the shit that your class is doing.
True, right, yes.
When he said that shit, I was like, oh, Ayano Koji.
Yeah.
Like, someone's going to catch on to your puppet strings. So,
yeah, there should be something like that there. In the second episode, we kind of get more into what I guess is going to be the rhythm of this plot. Is he's got to kind of unravel all these little threads about people's hidden selves.
Yes.
That's the theme that I'm getting from this game. What did you feel about the blonde hair girl and sort of like, it's sort of a bullying story, but then it also kind of isn't? Like,
well, no, when he said parasite, I was like, no, she is a parasite.
Yeah,
like,
she is.
She is. Primarily because, like, when he said parasite, it made me think of the story from Monster Hunter Sunbreak, which is like, it's like a parasite host story, monster story kind of thing about. Mm-hmm. And she literally did the exact thing that them niggas did. She lost the host and went right and found a brand fucking new one.
I was heated. I'm like, really? For real? You just go to class A like that? Like, oh, you.
And that was another thing. I'm constantly thinking. I'm like, if Ayano Koji doesn't do something or appeal to her, she's gonna end up fucking them over out of her own self-preservation. That's what I think could be a possibility, or it could could happen. And then, she realizes her mistake, and then she actually teams up with Ayano Koji, or Ayano Koji's like, shut the fuck up and just listen to me. Like, you're my pawn now. Something like that. But there are just so many ways to go, because the bullying part, it makes sense that, like, someone who was so severely bullied, like, completely, like, the pendulum swung in the completely opposite direction in self-preservation, because it's just like, I'm going to become one of them bitches. Or like, I'm going to become a kin, or so popular that you can't touch me.
Yes. One thing that I went and I rewatched the last like 3 or 4 episodes of season 1 before watching this to refresh my memory as like kind of where folks stood. And I noticed something in the first 2 episodes. I don't know if you caught this, but maybe they were always doing it. So Ayano Koji never does anything, no character interaction that is, relevant to like solving a problem by himself on camera initially. So like you'll see, like, so in the bullying in episode 2, he gets the blue-haired guy, right?
Yeah.
He already had a plan because we know that he had identified. They were gonna
follow her and shit like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he waited for the other guy to suggest that something was wrong, and then encouraged him to come with him to go check out and follow her. When she's getting bullied when they're hunting for her, there's always somebody with him. And then when she's getting bullied, and clearly based on the end of that episode, he is going to, or they are going to interrupt, but at the right time for whatever plan, whatever plan he's got. But who's going to be the one who is going to essentially have to own the responsibility or credit for that? It's the blue-haired guy. It's the exact same thing. Was like
puppet. He's a puppet master.
It took me a second to like catch on as to like why I'll remember why I really like this series, because in other less well thought out stories, a character like Ayano Koji would just be very smart, and then things would happen. Right, he would do it all himself, or he would do it the audience. He'd do it in a way where, you know, we know that it was him doing it behind the scenes, but then it all just works out in front of the, you know, the camera, or whatever you want to call it. But like in this series, they make sure that he always is seen with his cutout. Whatever the person that he's going to use or people that he's going to use in order to like diffuse the credit and diffuse the focus on him.
Off of him, yes.
Yeah, they are always set up ahead of time and framed in camera, but done in a very subtle way for the audience that you don't even notice it. You're like, oh, right. Oh, that guy's here the whole time. They just happened
to be there. Also, something happened on the deck with Crazy Bitch. Because when she jumped in to hug him, there was like a sound in the background.
Yeah.
And I was like, what was that?
And then her little facial...
Yeah, when she did the thing, before she did that, I was like, either she put something on him, she stole something from him, or she did it to show someone else. Because knowing her, I'm like, girl, you probably got to deal with another class. I also think that the head girl from Class B, and I think Ayano Koji kind of like slightly like said something about it this episode, but she's leading the discussions because that's a place of power. Like if the discussion were to ever like go in a way that she wouldn't want it, or if she felt like things weren't like panning out the way that she wants them to, because she's been leading the discussions the entire time and basically like guiding the whole thing, she can steer shit in her own favor. And he was saying that, he was like, yeah, like, you know, she's been leading the discussions nonstop, only her every day. But also shout out to homeboy, super muscle dude, who's like, he said fuck it. Yeah, he's just like, I'm disqualifying my whole little group. Like, I ain't got time for this shit.
Which is what he did sort of in the last one. Yeah. Yeah,
which is a valid tactic where it's like, it's a neutral way. They didn't lose. They didn't win anything.
That's right.
It's just out. Which I think that's why I just love the show. It's just, there's so many ways it could go. And then like everybody like scheming. But it's not like malicious scheming. It's literally a game. It's just a game. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I still am interested in outside of like the character activity and everything else. I still think that it's a relatively like flat world that they've constructed, but there's enough intrigue. We don't know much
about the world outside. Yeah,
we know very little, and so that mystery is still there, and it's still interesting enough.
His dad, who the fuck is his dad? Yeah.
Yeah, it's still interesting enough that I want to know more, and as a result of wanting to know more, I'm willing to, you know, invest time in the show, which, you know, literally in the show, there are multiple scenes where you're just watching a clock turn. So it's not like a high-pitched or a fast-paced sort of experience to watch. But I wasn't, like, upset. I was just more like, I want to know more. Give me more. Give me more. So I enjoyed the first couple episodes of the season.
Same.
What else? What you got?
So, I mean, I watched Made in Abyss. That we didn't even get one full minute.
Nah, bro.
Into the episode.
Talking about? What
are you kidding me?
What are you talking about?
Are you kidding? Are you fucking
What you need a minute for?
I need a minute to like at least like show. I thought we were gonna start with Rico. They were like, no, we're introducing the new characters and you need immediate trauma, nigga. Like it's been too long. But I'm like, yo. What is going on? And then I think one of the most like sinister, the part that like I was like, bitch, what is this? Is when they showed the group. First of all, they showed that group just going down. They were just going down. We didn't get like no details or nothing. And then they showed the scene where they opened the fucking pod and there was a white whistle with a deformed person right there in the middle of the pod. And I was like,
yep.
Wait, like no, like you can't glaze over shit like this. Like you can't like.
I mean, like scene one was horrible. You know what I mean?
I mean, well, the rape, and then also what they implied with the little guide girl.
Yeah,
that took me out. I was like, wait, are you implying that basically she's been fucked already and she just wasn't getting pregnant? Is that what you were implying? Because I was like, wow, y'all are just like, it's just nonstop. The first episode, we're just non-stopping this shit. Okay, wow, okay.
No good can come from any of this.
I mean, well, I know for a fact that I homeboy, like the three prophets, the three sages, the oldest dude with the blue beard, I was like, no sir. I was like, you no sir, don't trust it. I also like how Nanachi's like, Bondru, you see this shit? Like, I know you see this shit. He's basically just accepted. He's like, I didn't figure out how he's looking at my shit, but I really don't care. Like,
yeah, he's like, fuck it.
So that part, but just so there's a white whistle, homegirl with what some people call her Todoroki. So like Todoroki homegirl, like someone like she's still alive when they got to the is the sixth layer now. To the sixth layer. So she's still alive. They're on the sixth layer. And I'm just like, bruh, like, the fact that we skipped over, well, not even that we skipped, because they might go back and, like, she might have a reminiscing episode of basically being like, yeah, we've been going down into this shit and it's been bad. Like, it's been horrible. But also, I didn't watch the preview, so when they revealed the hole and the city wasn't around it, I was like, bitch, this is a prequel? Like, we're getting a side-by-side prequel with the same... Oh my goodness. So now, I'm thinking, y'all not telling us this story without these niggas coming together at some point. So how the fuck is this shit wrapping up together? Like, how we doing this? And it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad.
It's not good.
It's not. I know it's not good. Well, I did like a TikTok. I posted my little TikTok shit, and like the majority of the comments of people who had read it, they were just like, "Yeah, nah, bro, it gets worse. Like it just gets worse. It just gets way worse." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean it gets worse?" And they're just like, "It just gets worse."
So,
it's just worse.
So I'm not going to disagree with that. I think factually, if you look at once the season is up, I'm pretty sure I know what they're going to cover this season. If you wrote it down as like things that happened, like, yeah, I agree that it gets worse. But I also think that like if you are somebody, I can't imagine who this person was, but like if you were somehow watching season 1 and then did not watch the movie and then watch this, you probably feel that way. Because you skipped. The events of the movie.
Moody actually skipped the movie, and she was confused when it came out. And I was like, "Wait, why is Moody confused?" And then she said that she actually didn't know that like the third movie was the connection. So I was like, "Oh, well, that makes sense." I was like, "I wonder what that was like to just like have them show up like that." And of course, she's calling the fucking white whistle Prushka. I was like, "Girl, shut up! Stop! Don't even mention that."
What are you gonna do?
I mean,
this is the thing that I wanted to get at was if you were someone who like Moody had not seen the movie and then came in here, I think starting with minute 1 of the next season, it's the worst thing that you've encountered so far beyond like brutal like deaths, like multiple rapes, like all that story. Like it's not good. This is all like horrible shit. But if you watch the movie, in my opinion, or if you were a manga reader and you get through this part of the story, there's a part of you that's kind of more prepared for the fuck shit. And even though it still hurts and it still hits, I felt like I could pay more attention to the story and the things that are being unraveled than I was able to do so even in the earlier chapters where I was just dreading, oh God, it's gonna go bad. Oh God, it's gonna go bad. Oh God, because it does, but I still feel like it's almost as if you've grown up. you realize now what this series can do, and so then you can have your eyes open a little more to the stuff around the edges, rather than just like holding your breath for another. Yeah, no, because I'm holding my breath.
Like I'm literally just like something's happening. Of course, something always is happening, but a lot of that Golden City or whatever the fuck, like I saw like shipwrecks and everything, and the fact that that ship that was on the sea, like one of them was gutted, the other one was like burnt, but there was no fire. I was like, where'd that ship come from? Did that ship get like teleported outside the abyss some way? Some shit like that. Like honestly, at the beginning, I literally thought that like that group was going to the island to be sent down by Bondrewd. I was like, this nigga is so evil. He's just not gonna. He just doesn't give a fuck. He's just gonna send more niggas down there.
No,
and be like, I sent some friends.
There is one thing that will. I think from the time they're gonna get it out of the way earlier in the season that might be the worst shit that I've ever heard as a concept. Like when you realize what was happening, but like. It doesn't feel as bad because it's happening to a group of people that you don't necessarily have as close a connection to as the characters in the like
Rico,
it is
right.
It's happening adjacent and drives a lot of the story, but it's conceptually and also what is actually delivered in the series might be the most fucked up. Like I don't know who wrote this, who's the writer behind it. Whoever this motherfucker is, put him in prison for thinking this up.
Well, I don't.
Might be the worst shit ever, but it's for me, it's a lot of fun seeing a lot of these scenes in the city in color because. As you point out, the architecture and all like the bits and bobs around when you're reading the manga, it's so dense. Like there's just a lot of visual things happening in every panel, and I didn't know what it would look like animated and colorful, and it's very like it obviously makes sense. It's supposed to be like the Golden City, but like in the manga, it's harder to suss out that it's like bright.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, that's the vision. Oh, it all makes sense. Like, some of the shit that they were talking about. So, I really, really enjoyed catching up with the show. And just, I have something to watch here that I don't have to be mortified or, like, feeling dread. Because I already know how bad it gets. So, I don't. Yeah, so, it's like, let's just see what you got. What's it look like this time? You know? So, I'm excited. I'm excited.
But yeah, I will be faithfully watching it to my neighbor's despair because I'm gonna be yelling. I can already feel it. But I think that's all I've watched so far. Was it everything? Overlord that. I plan to watch Licorice Recall because I've been hearing good things about that, especially production wise. And another episode of Engage Kiss. Whatever, Devil is a Part-Timer hasn't dropped yet. I'll be watching some of that. And, I still gotta finish Kaguya-sama Season 3. And then they just announced a movie for that. But, I only have one news item.
Well, I can just say that there are two things that I kind of watched, but didn't really watch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was real quick. So, Orient, don't bother. And Call the Night. I watched I watched the bits and bobs of that. It's really interesting. It's a vampire sort of story, but stripped down. So it's not like a huge cast, and a lot of it, like visually, they do a lot of very interesting things. I really like the character designs because they're cartoony but subtle, and there's a lot of sexual innuendo, but it's not a sexual show, if that makes any sense. Which is something in which, like, vampire stories, in fact, often are that way. Yeah. Where there's an allegory between like biting and sex, or the the necessity of intimacy, and so they use a lot of that and the implication, but they don't. That's not the purpose of the show, and there's some really cool camera stuff. It's also, I think, produced on the cheap, and they're getting a lot out of CGI in good ways that actually add to the look and feel of the show, rather than just looking cheap and then you're trying to fill time and fill space. Yeah. So that's it. Call the Night. I'll probably like sit down with like the first episode for real at a later date, but I was interested going in.
Well then, as far as news, I mean, the only piece of news that really even matters to me is that Kubo's giving us exactly what the fuck we want. That's it. That's basically it. We're getting exactly what the fuck we want. Expounded upon Blood War arc.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I didn't believe it when I heard it the first time.
Yeah, I was like, I need like actual like source, not just like a Bleach fan page, just like tweeting it. But yeah, he said it. So hey.
I didn't believe it, but now I believe. I'm a believer. So now that you've told me that that's what we're doing, I'm gonna hold you to that. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, to be honest, like I'm happy it's getting animated just by itself, because like, you know, if they had just kept going at the rate that they were going, it was just gonna be like zero budget, like at that point. So like now it gets like full budget, all hype, extra story, like the time to do things, like no off-screen fights. Don't no, we're not doing this shit. Even change the damn end. Who cares?
I mean, if they need to have that ending in order to set up what's going on in the new season, that's fine. I'm okay with that. The issue with the ending was they actually just cut the fight twice. They cut the so if you look at the 3 chapters of the end of Bleach, not that anyone has to run and do this anytime soon. There are stages of multiple fights that are just completely cut off, as well as the final fight.
And other fights that we should have gotten.
It just happens off screen, and like Aizen does something we don't even know, and then it's just over. So if the ending we got to get to is just you watch dies and Aizen is responsible, and you do the scene with the 2 chairs and whatever, if that's the scene that you got to get to, you can fill in everything before that, and I don't care. I don't care that that's how it ended, as long as you explain and give us the guts of that. I'm fine. I don't, I'm not asking for the. People it's like people who are like, oh, change the ending of the Star Wars movie. That movie is done. It is set in stone. Like, it sucked, but like it's there. So now we just gotta live with it. I'm fine with the ending we got. Just fill in a season's worth of gaps, because that's how much is missing. A whole fucking season's worth of gaps are missing in that.
Yeah. That's the only thing I care about. Like,
yeah.
There's probably other stuff, but
yeah. I mean, there's some other ideas that are not great, but it's okay. I'm okay with things not being good. I'm not okay with things being incomplete. That could be cool.
Yeah.
If you're gonna wash the Zero Division, just wash them in a cool ass way.
See this shit go down.
I don't mind. It's fine.
We know totally they lose. Fine. Let's see them though.
Right.
Let's see this shit.
Agreed.
To struggle.
So I have one news story, but it's like a news story about a news story.
Okay.
So Ken Akamatsu, who is the author and illustrator of UQ Holder and Love Hina and a variety of other series, recently won a seat on it's kind of the equivalent of a congressperson, a U.S. congressperson. It's Japan's House of Councils. It's not exactly the same way because the powers are not divided in Japan in the way that they are in the United States. But you could think of him like somewhere above a state senator, state congressperson, and a federal level, whatever congressperson. That's less important. I saw a bunch of reactions to this that I found troubling on multiple ends. So it's worth noting about Ken Akamatsu that he got interested in politics because some doujin that he was drawing got the attention of lawmakers back in 2014 when they were debating a bunch of bills about obscenity and like depictions of like underage children. Basically, they were going to label a lot of manga and especially doujins as illegal pornographic material. He disagreed, kind of got into a back and forth, wound up like testifying for Congress. The long story short, that bill passed, but they took out all the language that would have sort of put like doujins on the same chopping block as child porn, which,
oh, okay,
depending on how you feel about that, is either a good thing or a horrible thing. I don't have an opinion because I do not care.
Not my ministry.
And it goes deeper into like both another culture's, development and the politics and blah, blah. I don't give a shit. Okay. But that's what happened. Now, it's also worth noting that the reason why he was so invested is because he was drawing a whole bunch of Cardcaptor Sakura hentai. So.
Oh, God. Okay.
That's just a fact. So again, you can kind of do whatever you want with that information too.
Didn't know that, but okay.
So he decided to get more involved in politics, especially as his latest series has been wrapping up, because he's doing the sequel, one of the sequels to UQ Holder. There've been a whole bunch, but it's finishing up. So he won his seat. Fantastic. So he also happened to run under the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan, and this is where I saw a mess happening online, because there were people who looked at the headline and said, oh great, a mangaka has won a seat in Japan's government. Japan's government is doing a lot of or in the past has been interested in cracking down on what some people think of as freedom of speech over all sorts of things, including copyright, not just like, drawing underage girls. So it was looked at like, hey, this is a win for our community because he's one of us. Then there were other people who saw that and said, don't you know that he draws lolly porn for, whatever? Like, he's a disgusting pedophile. He's not one of us. This is a disaster. Then there were other people who looked at it and said, but he ran the Liberal Democratic Party. So his ideas and views have to align with mine. But then they don't realize that the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan is actually the Conservative Party.
Yeah, I was like, did you read?
And it contains everything from what we would call like a corporate Democrat in the US all the way to actual Nazis. Like actual Nazis, people who are extreme right-wing Japanese nationalists, and not the ones who'd bring back the emperor, the ones who would like do ethnic cleansing
in China. If there's one thing that 2022 has taught me, in multiple facets, is that niggas don't read. They don't read anything. No. Like nothing. And then the consequences for them not reading is pushed onto everyone else. How come I didn't know this? Because you didn't read it. How come you didn't tell me? Nigga, what?
So one thing that bothered me wasn't necessarily any one specific reaction. I do not care about the internal maneuverings of Japan's politics. I don't care that like what this guy was drawing in like 2010. I don't care about like Japan's laws about like what constitutes or doesn't constitute pornography and what does or doesn't constitute other types of, whatever illegal. I don't care about any of that because it's not my culture and I don't have a say and I can't control anything and whatever. But what bothered me was a lot of people looking at this story and then trying to apply a American Western, like, lens to it to try to understand what's going on. And then once they had done that, getting upset about one facet of the story or another through that same lens. I'm not saying that like you can't have an opinion about like lolly doujins, whatever they contain. You can have whatever opinion you want to have about it, but like just try to learn a little bit of the underlying nuance about what is going on, so that at least when you tell other people about this thing that's happening, or you want to go off the deep end and like aggressively attack other folks for being pedophiles, or conversely aggressively attack other folks for like, destroying the culture through PC wokeness, freedom of speech bullshit, whatever your bag is, at least do it armed with a full set of facts. Because like, I cannot tell you, I saw like dozens upon dozens and dozens of conversations of people screaming at each other over their takes about this guy just like happening to win a seat. Like, you don't know anything about what's going on over there. You don't know. I don't know anything about what's going on. So guess what? I keep my motherfucking mouth shut. Exactly. I just keep it shut.
It's so easy to just say, I'm not informed enough on this topic to give an opinion.
Exactly.
That's a perfectly valid response. I'm not informed enough, which means, I probably will go inform myself further, but also, like, nigga, it's Japan. Like, what are we gonna do about it? Like, I'm not the one that actually can, like, vote for someone else.
No.
like against him. I don't have a
No.
platform or any
No.
kind of like political influence. It's kind of just like it's kind of like a waste of my time to even be arguing with you niggas on the internet in the first place.
It's 100% a waste of time.
Like, why are we doing this?
I don't know. And then on top of that, just to extend a little bit, Shinzo Abe got clapped this week.
He sure did.
And to be fair, that was one of the wildest things that I'd ever heard of in my life.
With a pipe bomb.
Somebody
with a pipe shotgun.
Yeah, he made a Fallout 3 gun and killed that man. Like
on the campaign trail.
Yeah, outside in front of people.
Yes. I was like, in Japan?
Yo, I was like, these motherfuckers are wilding. Like, this is a wild ass shit. Like, I was legit shocked. And then the same thing happened. Now, this isn't all anime niggas, but it's people who don't know nothing about the country, trying to understand. They don't know exactly. They don't know anything about. Or they know what they've heard. They've either decided that he's a really bad guy, or they've decided that he's a good guy and shouldn't. Stay the fuck out of that. You don't know what the fuck you're talking. This would be the wildest thing. Is that we should know better inside our own country. Because there's shit that happens in like other communities that are right next door to people that folks be wild out, and they don't know a damn thing about what's going on.
What's going on? I don't see what's going on. This is about me though.
Yeah, they don't know a damn thing. I remember I would, have to scream with an uncle about like, oh, Chicago's the worst. Like, you don't know nothing about what happened in Chicago. You don't know how they tore down the projects. You don't know nothing about all that. So don't engage. Just like
regurgitating.
Regurgitating.
No actual. Yeah.
You don't know. So
yeah, you don't
know. All of that in a little bundle is when you see things like this, just read the article, take on the factual information.
You don't have to say anything.
Exactly. Who, what, where, how, maybe, why, if you can find it. A when is good to be able to answer. But other than that, hold your extreme opinions until somebody who actually knows what's going on can give you the right context so that you can make a good argument. Because even if you're right, and all these people are amazing saints or horrible demons, if you give the wrong argument to support that idea, then all you've done is undermine the good arguments that other people who actually did do the work to understand what's going on want to make later. Because the folks they're talking to is going to point to your dumbass and people like you and be like, well, those motherfuckers were wrong. Why should I take you seriously? So just shut up. Just shut up. It's okay. Just read, listen, and then be quiet. Don't comment.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Takahashi. I hope they find out what exactly happened, if anything actually happened. But yeah, I saw rumors about that also, about like Takahashi and the Shinzo Abe stuff, and I was like, where are you niggas getting this?
I don't even need
to. Where are you getting this? Like I
don't
like, and that's the thing though. Like I don't even know anything about like that political landscape, or the fact that like somebody was saying that like Takahashi was like an avid like anti Shinzo Abe, and I was like, but why? Like, that's none of our business. Like, it's their business. Like, they're gonna figure it out, and maybe one day, 2 years from now, they're gonna be like, oh, we found out all this shit. This is actually what happened, and they're actually not linked at all. So why are niggas even saying that shit? It's an exercise in just waste.
Yeah, like, I don't care about these conspiracy theories. Shout out Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, damn.
Shout out Yu-Gi-Oh!
I never thought I'd say that, but like, damn, like that's wild. Yeah. But to maybe end on like a better note, this is like a kind of a recommendation, which I guess it will require a link. But I stumbled over a fantastic documentary about Lum, which was also in a way a documentary about Rumiko Takahashi's early days as a mangaka in like the 70s.
Yeah.
And like, man.
Wait, did you post that on Twitter?
I think I might have, but like,
I think I saw someone retweet it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have so much respect for Rumiko Takahashi. I have so much respect, because when they were talking about how at the height of her work, she was basically publishing 3 series simultaneously, including like Ranma overlapped with like, I don't know if it was My Son Ikoku or Lum was still running, but like, yo, the shit that woman went through, she put herself through, and has always just been just turning out banger after banger after banger after banger. her whole life. Like, she gave her whole life to this. It's like, just shout out to her. Like, that was, what a great human being. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I mean, my recommendation is to like listen to the Xenoblade 3 OST stuff that's out right now. I probably will be recommending a whole bunch of Xenoblade 3 stuff like until it comes out, and then I'll disappear until I beat the game. But yeah, it's gonna be a juggernaut. It might. Oh my god.
I mean, the hours. I'm gonna lose hours because like you already got through Fire Emblem at least one run.
Yeah,
I am close to the end of one, and I still haven't done anything in Monster Hunter, which is like on deck. Like, if I didn't have a real job, I would be all over Monster Hunter. Right now. But like, that's next, and then like Xenoblade's coming, and I can't do it. It's too much.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to like get through Sunbreak and Fire Emblem, because I was like, if I don't finish them before Xenoblade, I'm not finishing them. Like I'm not.
No, I feel that.
I'm probably gonna come back, but all of the previews. First of all, that was one of the best Nintendo Directs that I've ever seen.
They went ham. Yeah, they went ham.
That was so good. But the music, that fucking battle music, and now the previews are out on YouTube of niggas showing up to like the end of chapter 1. But they're not showing like the whole chapter. They're just showing like tidbits and things like that. But there's like 3 different battle themes in the first fucking area. It's like, oh man, it looks so cool. The heroes, the class system, the fucking Ouroboros, 2 sides of the... All right, that's it. That's my recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess I wanted to shout out Tower of God again for those who are not caught up.
Oh man.
I just want to put it into the universe. Like everything we talked about today about like having good supporting characters and good villains, like it just is summed up in my emotional reaction to having Rachel back in the story.
No. No.
Hate that individual with every fiber of my being, but because she's come back...
I knew it was coming. I knew she was coming
but
soon.
Because she's come back after so... I mean, it's been years since she's been a part of the story. Mm-hmm. To see her now and to like... Because every time she leaves the story, I'm like, I hate her. But I wonder, when I see her again, not only will I get the same intensity of emotion back, but will there be anything that can possibly
make her worse?
Or like make her worse, or take my feelings about her to another level where I'm like, oh, I hate her even more for new reasons. And I'm already feeling like I hate her more for new reasons.
Are you serious? I haven't watched since the chapter when they showed her.
Oh god, I hate this one.
I'm not Red.
I don't. But now I don't like her because she's fucking comfortable, and that upsets me.
Yes.
It upsets.
Yeah. She and what the fuck is her name? They were on the ship like Kiki.
Yeah, the idol. Like, oh my god.
Yeah,
fuck
they were
her.
like, oh, we're gonna go do this. We gotta run this errand real quick. And I'm like,
if I could just reach into a universe and just pull it and just drag a person, just not kill them, just drag them. You know?
No, she can't just die.
No,
like, she can't just die. Like after everything that has happened. So, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, A, what a fantastic villain. B, highlighting something that CU said all along, which every time I remember this quote, it redoubles in what a great idea it is for a writer. He said that everybody thinks that my favorite character is Bomb because I wrote the story about him and dreamed this all up around him, but actually my favorite character is Rachel. And when I first read that after reading the prologue and the first season, I was like, this man is out of his fucking mind. And I was upset because it just meant I was going to get more of her. As I have continued with this series and seen all this, what it has to offer, I appreciate that. In fact, I think most authors who do fiction should think about that concept where like maybe you should love your villains as much or more than your main characters, because you get so much more out of a villain that is written with depth and with like not empathy but with vigor. Like Rachel is just a piece of shit from top to bottom, but you can't write that character if you don't love that character as the writer. You know what I mean? There's no way that you could write somebody like that if you didn't care.
Because there's definitely a lot of nuance with that bitch.
Oh, so there's so much. And who's the new princess, the Jahar princess, the one who was from the station game? What's her name?
I don't even remember that bitch.
She's great, fucking fantastic, great.
I liked her interactions with what's his name?
Traumaray.
Yeah.
Great.
The fact that we just literally left the arc where that nigga was like, "I'm killing you all," and now you're just like on the ship with the nigga like, "Yeah, he's with me."
I mean, it's a brilliant type of power.
The power
scaling, right?
dynamics are literally just.
It's perfect. You take this character, you spent a year building him up as like completely unbeatable. Your main cast fails to defeat him, and then they use essentially trickery to delay what would otherwise be annihilation, and therefore
tournament arc.
Right, and exactly, and then you turn him into a supporting cast member, but not necessarily as an ally. He's still threatening. He's still there. He's still someone that they got to be worried about. But he instigates a tournament arc in the middle of what you thought. Like it's, I don't know what I can say. This is just
the last thing I thought we were gonna get was a tournament arc. I thought we were getting more.
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that at all.
I thought we was gonna a more war. No.
Yeah, we kind of we came off of what was sort of a tournament arc, but it was like weird game rules and that's what they do every time.
The game fell apart at one point. It was kind of just like that shit's not even important anymore.
Yeah, and I think CU understood that and was like, okay, I'm just gonna blow this whole shit up because we're done. We got to all the points that we needed to get to that could be facilitated by the game, like White and Bam and
Yasracha.
And everyone kind of got something to do. You told Yasracha and the dog people story, and you kind of got up to a level where okay, we kind of just need to get them all out of here. And what way can we do that doesn't completely betray the
work that we've done?
Yeah, the work that was there. And we did, because they had an all-out battle with and they started throwing new characters in there. Bam's going ham, new powers coming out. So it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, story-wise. But it then gets you out of what could otherwise be like an overwritten scenario that could only have bad ends, right? You don't want to kill off certain people when you haven't done enough with them and blah, blah, blah. So it's a long way of saying that, writing supporting characters, you want a masterclass in that? Go read some Tower of God, and I think I put over Ember Knight before. I think I also put over a series called Trouble.
Oh yeah, how were those? Did you read those new chapters? I remember you were talking
yeah.
That,
so
a group did a chunk.
Yeah, and that's still sort of the case. So the translations are kind of wonky, but it goes to show you that if you've got a good story, even some Google Translate plus a little elbow grease can still get across how cool a lot of these ideas really are. I want, if they ever get to a point where this is released on time in English, I will pay to read that one because
you'll pay the Tappy Tune.
Yeah. So Ember Knight has a lot of features that are very similar in their promise to Hunter x Hunter as far as complexity and brutality and the world building and everything. It's got a lot of the right stuff there. I just hope it'll fucking finish because the last time I got really invested, what was it called? Her Summon, which was fantastic. It just ended.
You told me about that one. Yeah.
It ended. Well, I mean, it had an ending, but it wasn't like the ending I wanted. I wanted a lot more out of it. So I hope this one goes the distance. I hope it's getting support. I don't really know how to give any money because it doesn't really seem to be much of a other than getting a subscription to whatever. But it is what it is. So so that's what I got this week.
Yeah, there's plenty more to talk about for this season, y'all, but we can't be doing 2.5 hour episodes. That can't happen right now. Maybe with guests, but not right now. So if you haven't already, make sure you go follow us on Twitter, anime_savants, and then just regular anime savants on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Also, shout out to the people who are commenting on TikTok. I edit the cuss words out. They let it stay up.
Oh, well,
there it is. Yeah.
Yep, and you can always hit me up on Twitter at Neural Handshake. And yeah, not a lot really going on. We're just getting into the groove of this season, and we'll figure out what we're watching weekly. I know there was a lot of stuff we didn't get to. I know Jordan will at some point give us the Pretty Cure deets.
Oh, I forgot all about that bitch.
I know.
Whatever. I'll get it next week.
We'll come back to that one. We got
you
a
can
whole
go to
raft.
my Twitter. You can see me about her. Yeah, I did that. But yeah, I'll get into her details. Well, I even said that I was her. I didn't even say shit about her. Whatever.
I mean, look, there's a lot, and we'll also be covering some of the Netflix anime as well, which all kind of dropped in a clump. So that should be pretty fun. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Bye.
Peace out.